Brilliance Audio presents Complicating by Noelle Adams and Samantha Chase, performed by Carly Robbins. Daisy stared at herself in the mirror over the sink and thought with a thrill that she looked pretty darn good. Her dress was green to match her eyes, and although it was perfectly appropriate for a 5 o'clock wedding, it was sexier than what she normally wore, with its sleek shape and slight flare above her knees. She turned a bit to make sure the curve of her butt wasn't too pronounced. It was pronounced, but hopefully not unattractively so. "Your ass looks fantastic," Chloe said with a grin as she came out from one of the bathroom stalls. "I wasn't looking at it." Daisy gave her butt another quick glance to verify that it did indeed look fantastic. Chloe laughed uninhibitedly as she washed her hands. "You can act all sweet, innocent librarian all you want, but you've got a wild side in there somewhere that I'm going to set loose eventually." Daisy gave her friend an appreciative smile and didn't argue. Out loud, anyway. She knew the truth. She didn't have a wild side. She was a sweet and mostly innocent librarian. She was 24 and she'd only had one serious boyfriend. She went to church every Sunday, and she'd been raised to never swear, never drink, and never, ever let boys touch her in naughty ways. She might not have lived up to those rules perfectly, and lately she'd been working on being herself and not just who she was raised to be. But she certainly wasn't close to Chloe's level of wildness. Daisy had met Chloe at Preston's Mill, their apartment building in a small town in eastern Virginia, and they'd become friends immediately. Chloe was fun and fearless and had traveled all over the world, and she was always encouraging Daisy to spread her wings a little further. Daisy was trying, but there was no way she'd ever spread her wings as far as Chloe did on a regular basis. She would always be a quiet, small-town girl at heart. "We've got to try to find you a man tonight," Chloe said conspiratorially as they were leaving the bathroom. "Ha, ha," Daisy replied dryly. "Why do you mock? There must be a few eligible men around. Half of Preston is here tonight, plus tons of people from surrounding areas." Chris and Heather were both raised in Preston, so they know everyone. Daisy had been raised in Preston, too. She was a couple of years younger than Heather, the bride of today's wedding, so they hadn't been really close, but she knew almost everyone in town. She also knew there weren't any interesting single men lurking in the shadows of the reception hall, a large ballroom in a lovely Victorian house that was now hired out for weddings and other occasions. As she and Chloe re-entered the room, Daisy's eyes immediately strayed toward the far corner, where the man she'd noticed before was still lurking in the shadows. She wasn't sure why she'd noticed him earlier, except he was sitting alone and seemed so out of place. He was tall and well-built with unruly dark hair. He was dressed in all black, and he'd evidently made a gesture toward wedding attire with a jacket, but his shirt didn't have a collar. He looked rough, intimidating, not particularly friendly. He wasn't even very handsome. At least, not the type of looks Daisy had always gravitated toward. She wasn't sure why she kept sneaking looks at him. "You're just scared," Chloe said, as they returned to the table they'd been sitting at earlier. The reception was lovely and generously stocked with food, but it wasn't a formal banquet dinner, and there wasn't assigned seating. Daisy enjoyed these kinds of receptions more. They didn't feel so stiff and artificial. The band was playing a good variety of music, and there were a lot of people dancing, but mostly kids bopping around and older couples who clearly knew all the old steps. "I'm just scared about what?" she asked Chloe, trying to think back to their earlier conversation. "About coming on to men,"